Family Fights with Kyle Harrison and Matthew Blumenthal. Boom, there's your intro. How'd I do?
Hello, people of the MMA world. Thank you, Chael Sonnen, for that intro. As always, welcome back to the Family Fights podcast. I am Matthew Blumenthal. Unfortunately, my co-host Kyle Harrison couldn't be here today, but he will be back for next episode, and we cannot wait for that to happen. But with that said, we have a lot of news to get into, so let's get into it. First this week, we had Kevin Holland. Kevin Holland submitted an internet troll. If you guys are unaware, Kevin Holland is a UFC fighter who is great stand-up, but has lacked grappling skills in the past, and we'll say that to put it in the least. He is a Brazilian black belt in jiu-jitsu, but his wrestling just really is not up to par. He has had some questionable moves. We mentioned them in the first ever episode of Family Fights, of him taking short notice fights on wrestlers. He went on a 5-fight win streak in 2020, and then went on a few fight skid in 2021. But he's coming back in 2022 at a new division. He's going to be in the welterweight division. Kyle and I are hopefully going to get to see him at UFC 272 in Vegas, and we're very excited. But a few Twitter trolls were on him about being a terrible grappler, and one of them said that they could submit him. So what did Kevin Holland do? He said, hey, listen, come on down to the gym and we'll find out. And that's what happened. This troll came down to the gym. Kevin Holland submitted him. And I think it's very important to mention that as a fighter myself, we've all had those moments where we're watching a UFC fight or a grappling match and said, I could have done that. All you had to do was flip your hips. All you had to do was sprawl, get that hip to the ground, reverse it, and boom, you're back to your feet. And we've all said, I could have beaten that guy. But I think when it comes to it, professional fighters are much different, and we all realize that mere seconds after the blasphemy that comes out of our mouths. But when a professional fighter takes down a professional fighter in a professional fighting environment, it is much different than at the gym, or it is much different than a non-pro. And I don't care how good you are with your friends, or I don't care how good you are at the gym, you are not a professional. You cannot do what the professionals are doing. And also, it is much different in a pure grappling sense. In a grappler v. grappler match, it's much harder to execute than when you have to think about knees, elbows, heels, shins. You got to think about all the striking hands. You got to think about it all. The last thing you're thinking about is a takedown, and boom, that's when it happens. I promise you, if Kevin Holland, when he has done them, goes into grappling matches, he shows better grappling than he does in his UFC fights because he has less to think about. And no normal guy sitting on their couch can beat Kevin Holland. Now, does everyone have a puncher's chance? Yes. Could I go out? Could I beat Tony Ferguson in a fight? Most likely not. But do I have a puncher's chance? Yes. Could I land a lucky punch? Yeah, I could. But in all reality, I am not going to beat a professional fighter, and nobody on Twitter is going to beat Kevin Holland unless they are also a pro fighter at his level, which very, very few of them are. So if you're going to attack a UFC fighter who is willing to bring you to their gym and fight you, be careful. And if you guys have seen this, it was a very funny video. Kevin Holland started trolling. He's like, listen, take this hip, let's do it. He sprawled, got to the mat, boom, submitted, slapped the dude on the stomach, said, get the fuck out of here. So I think that was a lot of cool. And unfortunately, we can't get Kyle's thoughts on that, but I'm sure he'll weigh in at the beginning of next podcast. So moving on, we had Khabib Nurmagomedov, Eagle FC 44, first ever event in the United States, I believe. If I'm wrong, please correct me. On our socials, Instagram and Twitter are the Family Fights Pod, or you can reach out at familyfightspodcast@gmail.com. Sweet little plug right there for our socials. Hit us up. But Khabib, I watched the Eagle FC 44 event. I didn't watch it in its entirety. I had the wrestling matches on in the background. It was Penn State and Iowa that I was watching. Man, what a meet that was. You also had Minnesota versus Michigan, I believe, right before that. That was awesome. Got to see Gable Steveson wrestle, and I cannot wait for that gentleman to be in the UFC. He is going to be an absolute baller. I think if you implemented him into the UFC roster right now, he could beat a lot of guys in the top 15 heavyweight just with his wrestling. I think he has the best wrestling on the planet at the moment. He's a gold medalist in spectacular fashion at the Olympics this summer, and he's just dominating for Minnesota right now, and he's going to go into the WWE. So excited to watch him. Also Spencer Lee, he's on the shelf right now with torn ACL surgery. But I think he's going to be great in the UFC if he decides to go down that route. But back to Khabib Nurmagomedov, the event was very well produced. When you have these new promotions, a lot of them don't focus on the production of it. They just try to focus on the fights. They don't focus on the cameras. They don't focus on the audio. They don't focus on the crowd. Khabib did it, in my eyes, perfectly. The cameras were awesome. They did have the ref cam where he's like wearing the camera on his glasses. I don't love that because it kind of gets shaky, kind of gives me a headache. But it was definitely interesting to see. The commentary was great. You had Chael Sonnen, a friend of the podcast, sort of. We love Chael. Anytime you can give that man a microphone, it's awesome. You had a Triple C wearing his 5-inch heels trying to get up to the height of Chael. And the other commentator was Kamaru Usman. Training partner at Elevation Fight Team, where Kyle is, so he's got the pleasure of seeing him train quite a few times, and that was great to listen to Kamaru, champions feeding in knowledge to listeners around the world was awesome. The fights was awesome. Very happy to see, oh my god, I'm totally blanking. Oh my god, I'm totally blanking. Who won at Eagle FC this week that I'm thinking of? Oh my god, I'm sorry, guys. I cannot... Rashad Evans. Rashad Evans, you were awesome. I'm very happy to see you come back. I obviously was not an MMA fan at the time of your run, and I know that you went on a five-fight skid to end your UFC career, so I was very happy you had a dominant performance at Eagle FC 44, and just the entire event was awesome. But the point I want to talk about is what Khabib said about Juliana Pena. And Juliana Pena is not happy with this because Khabib kind of gave her a diss. She's walking around acting like she's the absolute best female fighter to ever grace the earth because she beat Amanda Nunes. Now, I don't think that Amanda Nunes should have been pound for pound before this. I definitely don't think she should be after. But I think Juliana Pena should act like a pro a little bit more. I feel like she's flaunting the belt everywhere she goes. She's wearing it in interviews. Like, I get it. Like, maybe for a week or two after. But it's been a month and a half now. Kind of act like you've been there before and start training for the next fight, which I promise you is going to be much more difficult than the first one. And Khabib agreed with me. Khabib went out and he said, listen, Juliana Pena won that night. I don't know why people think she's like the best fighter in the world. She won on one night, and he made some comments about female MMA, and that is not very interesting. I'm obviously paraphrasing here. I don't want anyone to take what I say and be like, oh, Khabib said this. No, I'm paraphrasing, and I agree with him. I am all for women getting into sports, and I'm all for women's rights and all of that jazz, but simply it does not make as much money as men's sports. You see that in the WNBA. It costs more money for them to put out a game on TV than they bring into the game, and that's an issue, an economic issue. So Khabib saying that female MMA needs something. It needs something. And obviously there's fighters like Rose Namajunas, Joanna Jędrzejczyk, and Valentina Shevchenko who are just phenomenal. And Zhang Weili, and even Amanda Nunes and Juliana Pena, they're phenomenal fighters. And it's a treat to watch them fight, but the divisions just are not as deep as they need to be. And I think Khabib brought some light to that. And maybe Dana needs to work on getting some more talent in there, and maybe it might not even be Dana's fault. There might just not be enough women that can compete, and I think it's very unfortunate for the 25ers at this point because nobody can touch Valentina Shevchenko. I don't think anyone in that division truly, deep in their heart, believes they could win. Obviously, everyone's going to go out saying, oh, hell yeah, I could beat Valentina. But deep down, I think all of them know they can't, so that's very unfortunate for the division because MMA and all sports are more interesting when there is competition, and I think there's an issue of competition in female MMA right now, and Juliana's a little butthurt about what Khabib said, but, shit happens, and sometimes you gotta roll with the punches. So, moving on, if you guys have any comments on that, once again, shout us out on Twitter, Instagram, or our email. Let us know what you think. But moving on, something interesting I read was the Arizona State Athletic Commission will not be releasing fighter pay anymore. Obviously, fighter pay is a huge issue in MMA right now, especially the UFC. And some athletic commissions release fighter pay after events, and some do not. Arizona was one that did release fighter pay, but now they went out and said, we will not be doing that anymore. And I agree with that. I feel like there's something to be said about payment in athletes. And obviously, athletes are in a different spectrum of the world where if I want to know Stephen Curry's NBA salary, I can simply look it up. Now, if I wanted to know my teacher's salary, I can't go online and look up what is blah, blah, blah's salary. But athletes, you can. But the UFC athletes, you don't really know that. You can assume, but you can assume about anybody. Right? You can see what car we drive and what clothes we wear and where do we work. We can kind of assume what everyone makes. But some people don't like putting that information out to the world, and that's their choice. Some people make different choices, and I don't think it's fair for athletic commissions to just simply release the amount of money that these people make without really giving them a choice. And if they do have a choice, I have not read anywhere that they have a choice to put that out or not, since every UFC fighter that fought at 270 got released, I believe. And if I'm wrong, please let me know. But I feel like you shouldn't be able to just release someone's salary without them really having a say in it. But I think when we come to fighter pay issues, to get it solved, fighters who are comfortable releasing how much they make need to be doing that themselves. If you really want to bring an alert to the people about how much fighters are getting paid, after a fight right here, guys, I just knocked out my opponent in the first round, 2 minutes and 4 seconds in, brutal flying knee KO. I got an extra $50,000 for that, but hey, in total, I only got paid $70,000. I think that's a little bullshit. This is my salary. Just want to let you guys know that, and that will bring more attention than guys just going, I'm not getting paid enough. Okay. Just saying it with no information does not back it up. Because for all we know, these fighters saying they're not getting paid enough could be making a lot more than they're worth, and they just have a delusional idea. I don't think that is the case, but it is a possibility, is what I'm saying. But something I think athletic commissions should release, and I think they should be forced to release, is what the California State Athletic Commission does, is the weight of the fighters the night of the fight. I think a lot of fighters cheat the system by cutting a fuck ton of weight. Some people just have the genetics to be able to cut weight at ease. Michael Chandler fights at the 155-pound division. He fights at 190, or walks around at 190, my apologies. Davison Figueiredo fought at 124, weighed in at 124, and fought at 143, I believe. That is a drastic increase, and if you guys have never fought, weight makes all the difference. I could have all the wrestling and all the jiu-jitsu technique in the world, but if the opponent is 20 pounds heavier than me, there's a good chance they can simply pull a Derek Lewis and just stand the fuck up. I could hit you I could have all the striking skill in the world, but if I hit a guy who's 50 pounds heavier than me, it's not going to do much. And that guy lands one punch on me, I don't care how strong my chin is, I'm going to feel it more than he's going to feel mine. And that's why weight classes are in the game. And I believe there's a clause that you cannot cut more than 20% of your body weight or you get fined. I don't think the fine is enough. I know Israel Adesanya has said this to Dana White before, in the cage actually, that fighters are willing to cut more than 20% and give that little fine away to have this massive advantage in a fight. And I think a lot of fighters take advantage of that. If I was a fighter and I had the ability to cut more than 20% of my body weight and not feel the effects the next day, sign me up. I gotta give away 10%, 20% of my contract. Guess what? The probability of me winning makes me a lot more money than if I lost without taking that 20% pay cut. And I also think weight cutting is very dangerous. If you don't do it properly, it will take years off your life. Even if you do it properly, it'll take years off your life. And if you weight cut improperly, it is very, very dangerous to your body. So when these fighters are now cutting 20% of their body weight and cutting 13 pounds in 24 hours, that is not safe for their body. And there's fighters, I believe Corey Sandhagen, don't quote me on this, but I think Corey Sandhagen said this once, that your brain cannot come back to equilibrium fast enough. By the time you weigh in and 24 hours later you're fighting, your brain is still messed up from that weight cut. So you take a shot, you are going to feel it differently than someone who did a successful weight cut properly. And the less weight you cut, the better you are going to feel the next day. I don't care how you look, I don't care how much you weigh, you're going to feel better the next day if you cut less weight than the guy across the cage. Now, will that always mean you win the fight? No. Like I said earlier, having more weight means a lot in a fight. But I think guys are sacrificing their health for these fights, and I think that's an issue, especially since with going back to the fighter pay, all these guys are also asking for health care benefits after they fight, yet they are destroying their bodies in ways that they do not have to. I think the UFC should put stricter limits on weight, and that will cause safer weight cuts and also more longevity in the sport and after you're done. I believe that does it for the current events. This is a quiet week. There is no UFC. We obviously have the UFC coming back next week with Sean Strickland and Jack Hermanson. That's a very good card. Kyle and I will break that down when he's back later this week. We are very excited for that. Extreme Couture guys fighting. Eric Nixick, I'd love to see how he does this weekend. But right now, I'm going to talk about something that I've been thinking about for a while. I mentioned this a few podcasts ago. I am an aspiring agent. I'm going to school at Southern Methodist University down in Dallas, Texas, and I will eventually get a law degree and become an agent. I hope to be an MMA. I possibly might move to a different sport since I am a multi-sport athlete. You can see I play hockey, I play baseball. I'm well-depth in football and basketball. I know it all. So I'd like to be an MMA, so I'm going to put my agent cap on right now, and I want to give you guys, if I could start my own agent team, my own agent group of fighters that I get to be the agent for right now, who would I pick? And what I mean by this is it's not the best fighters in the world. I'm not going to give you the cheat option. I am not going to pick Petr Yan. Petr Yan is the champion right now. Yes, fuck you, Aljamain Sterling. Alger's the champ. Wow, Alger technically is the champ. Yan is the champ right now. I think he's going to be the champ for a long time, so I'm not going to pick him right now. If I could choose 4 or 5 fighters that I want to be on my team, who are they going to be? And that means they need to be good at fighting. I want them to be young, at least somewhat young, and I want them to be marketable. There's a difference in a good fighter and a marketable fighter. You see that in Francis Ngannou. The UFC, for some reason, does not see Francis as marketable. They should see him as marketable. He has one of the most marketable stories in history, but they do not see him as marketable, and that creates an issue for them. So I want marketable fighters. So, number 1, from the 135-pound division, the first guy I'm taking is Sean O'Malley. Sean O'Malley, he's definitely in my top 3 favorite fighters. I love watching him fight. I think it's a lot of fun to watch him fight. I think he's very personable. I think he connects to a certain audience very well. He's going to connect to the American audience well since he's from America. And although he's not a guy that's going to carry around flag with him into the cage, I think he definitely represents America when he fights. So that can get that market. I think he markets himself very well to a certain group of people, and those people are people that are going to be involved in the fight world, and his skills. Simply put, his skills are right up there with the best. 1 or 2 more fights, and I think he's in the title picture. Am I going to go out right now and predict that he beats Petr Yan? I don't know. I don't know if he can beat Yan. I don't know if he can beat Sandhagen. I think he has a good chance. I think that is going to be a good fight in a few years, but I'm not going to tell you right off the bat that he definitely wins that. But what I'm saying is he has the skills to be at the top, make lots and lots of money, and he is also very marketable. Moving on to my next fighter. This is a guy I talk about a lot. I love this guy. He's an up-and-comer in the heavyweight division, and that is Tai Tuivasa. He is a lot of fun. He has good skills. He has really good skills. He hammers leg kicks. He does shoeys after he knocks people out. He puts people unconscious, sits on the cage, and chugs beers out of shoes. That is marketable. He has a great come-up story. He came from a not-so-great part in Australia. If I'm not misinformed, I don't want to say that whatever part of Australia he's from is not great. I think it would probably be a great area for him. I don't know if it's the best area in Australia. I'm not from Australia. I know he carries that flag with a lot of pride. I know he loves being from Australia, Western Australia. He talks about it a lot, being from Sydney. He loves being there for his people. He doesn't want to leave. I think he's going to be able to market to the European sector of MMA, especially Australia. And I know Australia's down in Europe. Don't fucking get on me. I'm saying the outside of America culture. I think he's going to be able to target Australia and New Zealand very well, even though he's not from New Zealand, but that's in the same realm. I think, like I said, he has great skill. He's very marketable. He'll go out, he'll do interviews, he'll do shoeys with fans, and he'll have a good time. He just has fun in the octagon, and I think that's very important. So, moving on to another fighter that I would definitely want on my roster, and that's going to be Casey O'Neill. Casey O'Neill, I definitely want a female fighter on my roster. I think she has a lot of upside in the MMA world. She's a good-looking person. She's going to be able to market herself well. She's a great fighter, and I think she's definitely an up-and-comer in her division, and I think she's going to do great things in years to come. So that right there would definitely be my core three. And if I had to choose maybe an older guy who's not completely old, but I think he's going to do great things in the sport after his fighting career ends, I think that's going to be Michael Chandler. I think Michael Chandler is great because he is the guy that will hold the American flag while he walks into the octagon. He is very marketable in the sense that he does interviews. He's a motivational speaker. And, people razz him for his motivational speeches, but I think that's marketable. He's going out and he is doing motivational speaking events that makes him money, that brings eyes to him, that brings money to him, that would also bring money to me as his agent. I think that is a great opportunity for him, and I think that he's going to be a great Sorry, I just got a text. I think he's going to be a great coach after he fights. I don't know Michael personally. I'd love to get to know him. I think he's a great guy, great fighter. I don't know if he wants to coach. I would assume that he would be a good coach if he stopped fighting. And not every fighter can become a good coach. But you know what? I think he's got a chance. So if I could add him to my group and mentor the younger guys and girls that I chose, I think that would be great for my squad. And yeah, that's who I chose. If I missed anybody, I'm sure I'll think of them the second I click end on this podcast, and I'll kick myself for it. But a quick little 20-minute solo episode since Kyle couldn't be here. We still want to get information out to you guys. We love you guys. Thank you very much for joining me on this quick little episode of the Family Fights podcast. And have a great day, everyone. The Family Fights podcast will be releasing every Monday and every Friday. In those episodes, we will look back at the most recent card, give our updates and predictions on the UFC and other MMA organizations, as well as look at current events. If you guys would like to reach out, Instagram and Twitter is the Family Fights Pod, or you can reach out at familyfightspodcast@gmail.com. Have a great day, everyone.
Family Fights. Let's do it.